Welcome back to Startup Hack. I'm Spencer Thomason, and here at Startup Hack, we love to train software developers and build custom software solutions. I do a lot of work as a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and a solid 25 years in development, I've mastered the art of transforming technology teams and products. Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic that's crucial for any JavaScript developer: the many faces of undefined in JavaScript. So let's break this down into 5 key points and make it easier to understand. All right, so today we're going to dive into how to handle undefined in JavaScript. So as any JavaScript developer knows, undefined is a primitive value type automatically assigned to a variable that have just been declared but not assigned a value yet. This behavior can sometimes lead to confusion for new developers. Understanding this default behavior is essential for debugging and writing clean code. It's the first step in mastering variable management in JavaScript. Now, functions and undefined have an interesting relationship. When a function is called without all the arguments it expects, the missing parameters are assigned undefined. This can cause unexpected behavior if you're not properly handled within the function. Always ensure your functions can handle undefined values gracefully. Using default parameters is a good practice to avoid these pitfalls. Now, with objects and properties, accessing a non-existent property of an object will return undefined. This can lead to bugs if not anticipated, especially when dealing with dynamic data. Always check for the existence of properties before using them. Tools like optional chaining can help manage these scenarios effectively. Now, with arrays and undefined elements, this can get tricky. In JavaScript, arrays can have undefined elements either through sparse arrays or by explicitly setting an index to undefined. These elements can affect array methods and loops, leading to potential bugs. Understanding how to properly iterate through arrays and handle undefined elements is crucial. So it ensures that your data handling is robust and error-free. And we're going to go through all of this in the code samples, so don't fret. We're going to get there. So let's one more slide here, and then we'll dive into some code samples. So the difference between undefined and null. So many developers confuse undefined with null, but they serve very different purposes in JavaScript. Undefined indicates the absence of a value, whereas null explicitly indicates the absence of an object. Knowing when to use each one is essential for writing clear and maintainable code. It helps in avoiding common mistakes and ensuring intentions are clear in code. Now, as always, there's a link to the code sample down below, so go and grab the code samples because it saves you a ton of time when you're working in these projects, and a lot of these are ready-made projects. So today's is going to be a little bit less of a ready-made project, but you can go and download the code samples. There's hundreds of code samples out there, and actually there's a link in this code sample to the previous code samples, which also have hundreds of code samples. So we love writing code here at Startup Hack. So let's dive in and get into these code samples here. All right, so in our very simple case, we have a null equals a real value with a distinct type. So if I set this variable equal to null, then you're going to get a very real value coming back. Whereas if I say let optional value, so this one doesn't have anything assigned. So if I just create the variable but I don't assign anything, this is going to generate a value when the field isn't known. So if we try to use this before we set it to anything, the value is going to be undefined. So when you're checking for a missing or undefined variable, so if I do the triple equals on this and do undefined, then the log, what our value would be here is optional value is undefined, right? So this would be true, right? We would come in, and in this triple equals, it would check this to be undefined. Now, undefined is a value, a real value with a distinct type to a variable. So if I set this one to undefined, right, meaning that it hasn't been set, and I go and log this, it's going to actually just return undefined, which is what you would expect it to be, right? And that's where we would expect to be seeing this. Now, the interpretive cases, right? So falsy, when a real value looks undefined, right? So in this case, we have falsy value, right? And it equals to 0. So if it's not, and this is saying if it's not null, right? Then false value is treated as undefined or false, right? So in this case, where it's 0 and we try to check it as a Boolean, it's going to set as undefined or as false, right? Because you can't check, and this is where you're trying to check the value as a Boolean and not as its actual correct value type. So now we get a reference error. So when a symbol isn't known, so if in this case, I do a try catch and I say, hey, there's some non-existent variable and I try to log it, we're going to throw a console E and it's going to have a reference error, right? So this is a little different than undefined. This one will be a reference error. Now next, we talk about an empty slot, right? So if we take a sparse array here and we say 1, comma, and we leave this blank, and then we do this, and we try to access it, here we're going to get undefined because this is actually an undefined variable or an undefined index in the array. Now in this case, we're going to get -1 is undefined. And so this is actually, this is going to return differently than the undefined up here, right? This actually is going to return an undefined, whereas if I try to set, this is 1, 2, and 3, and then I try to index 4, it's actually going to give me a -1, right? So that's going to be out of bounds, not undefined. Now, undefined replacements, so custom undefined values. So we can actually set custom undefined values, right? So we set this here, and then if we, and so this can be something that we can do if we want to create a function that would actually create a custom undefined. Can't really think of a super good use case for this, but there probably exists one out there. Lastly, function arguments. So as I talked about in the slides, if an unspecified argument and an explicit, versus an explicit undefined, right? So in this case, we say, hey, A is number, and B with the nullable operator is number, and we log this. If we try to call the function 1, we're going to get undefined, right? If we try to call this with an undefined, it'll also do that. And so again, pull down these code samples, make sure to test them out, run them, see what you get here. So this is also a special TypeScript version, right? So if we do the TypeScript version here, we will get that this function returns void. So that's sometimes a way that you can give a really safe way to return a value because sometimes you don't know whether you're going to be getting null or undefined, and it can be really, and so this way, this would actually be a way to get one would be to return a no value. So that's just a few of the cases here. Hopefully something that I talked about here helped out. Here at Starter Pack, we love to train software developers. We love to we love to train software developers and build custom software solutions. So make sure you reach out and hit us up. At least say hi, because we always love to hear from our listeners. Let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if I had an error in my code somewhere. Just reach out and say hi. I always actually personally respond to all of the comments. So leave me a comment and we'll catch you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we bring you lots of great tutorials and tips that every developer should know. See you next time.